Hello everybody. Just making sure I'm live on Instagram too. Okay. Alright, one moment. I'm going to begin here in a moment, just checking that this is working. Okay, so welcome everybody. Today I'm live on Instagram as well as through Facebook to talk to you about the intuitive eating method. So maybe you know a little bit about intuitive eating, maybe you don't, but either way there's definitely some information here that you can learn from. So I'm super excited to share that with you. So what we're going to talk about today is what is intuitive eating and some myths that you might have heard about what this is. I'm going to walk through the 10 intuitive eating principles, which is a full method to help you learn how to become an intuitive eater. And then I'm going to talk about my March intuitive eating course, which actually starts this coming Sunday on the 21st. It's online, it's self-study, and I'll give you all the information that you need to know if this is something that interests you. Okay, so what is intuitive eating exactly? Intuitive eating is about living in alignment with what is best for your body. So we were all actually born this way. We were all born to listen to the natural signals of our body, to trust when we were hungry, to trust when we were full, to be like, yum, this food tastes good, or ew, this food tastes gross. And you can see now that your relationship with food is probably much different. So you have learned that instead of saying like, this tastes good, you say, I can't eat that, that's too many calories, that's too fattening, so instead I'm going to eat this bitter food that I don't enjoy, maybe like spirulina, because it is healthy for me. So we started to categorize foods that way, and not in a way that was nourishing and taking care of our bodies, but more in a way that was punishing ourselves, restricting ourselves. So we began to create these unrealistic rules around food that cause us to ignore our hunger and then oftentimes binge later or just have a lot of shame about our bodies anyways. So what's the point of eating healthy, eating super restrictive, eating low calories if you don't even feel happy about these choices anyways? So intuitive eating is about actually listening to your hunger and what you need. And in some days that's going to be a nice salad, and in other days it's going to be a big burger because it's full of protein and that's what your body needs. So, like, now what intuitive eating is, it takes the nutrition side and it takes the psychological side, and they meet in the middle. And they meet in the middle at intuitive eating. So intuitive eating is about deconstructing your relationship with food in your body. So it is about listening to your hunger, listening to your fullness, and finding true satisfaction with food. So some of the things that are not being intuitive are having certain food rules. So you say like, I can't eat after 8 p.m. Maybe you intermittent fast. That would be a form of not being an intuitive eater. Any kind of dieting is not being intuitive, where you are restricting yourself. Unless we're talking about like you actually can't have a food because you're allergic to it, because like there's true science reasons that your doctor explained why you shouldn't have it. But besides that, anytime you're restricting yourself, this is not being intuitive in any ways. And it can just be like, I had chocolate yesterday, I can't have it today, from a place of like guilt. And so another way is coping with your emotions with food. So you had a bad day at work, you come home and you eat something that is deemed a guilty food, a guilty pleasure. And it can be like out of habit, where you have unconscious eating behaviors. So every day at 3 p.m. you have this crash, so you turn to sugar, or like coffee even can be what you turn to at 3 o'clock every day. It's out of habit. You do this every single day because 2 hours after lunch, you're tired, you need a quick pick-me-up. And it can just be like you just go to the kitchen and you eat whatever you want. You're working from home right now during Corona, and you don't really think about what you're putting in your body. So it's not being mindful, it's not being intuitive. Body comparison. So a lot of women, if you're listening to this, can definitely relate. Please comment here if you can relate to any of the things I've said, or you've heard them before. So especially in the world of women, You know, another woman might be, in your eyes, prettier than you or more in shape than you, and she says in front of you, like, I can't wear crop tops, they make my stomach look horrible. So you think, I shouldn't wear crop tops if she can't. Or you've grown up hearing the way that your mother or your grandmother talks about her body, and so you start to compare it to theirs. Or maybe you're in a relationship and your partner is eating less than you, so you think that you shouldn't be eating very much because you should compare your food to them. So any kind of comparison with your body is also not being intuitive, because these are ways where we're not listening to what we truly need in that moment. And it might be more food than other people around us. It might be to learn to accept and love our bodies. It's a combination of all of these things. Anything that's food and body and emotional related. Whenever you let your self-critic take over, so this can happen when you're PMSing too. It can happen when you, you just start to compare yourselves to others a lot. You start to critique the way you look. You start to critique your choices, and you let everything the self-critic says become you and become true, even if it truly isn't. And I think I use the example PMS because it's something that the moment that we get our periods, we might feel like, it's behind me, I feel good again. So that wasn't you talking, that was your self-critic talking. And it might show up in other places in your life. So you might not have a menstrual cycle, and you'll see that it shows up more often than not when you're around other women, for example. And the last thing is deciding you'll be intuitive after you lose X amount of pounds or kilos. So sticking to that diet mindset at all is not being intuitive, because diets don't actually work when you're restricting your body. And you can go through all of the examples in the past that you've dieted, and maybe it worked for you here and there, but in the long run it never really helped you. All it did was create this unhealthy relationship with food. So yeah, it actually puts your body into the state of stress where your cortisol levels rise, and you end up retaining food instead and storing it as fat. So when you restrict, you're not helping your body in any way. You're putting it into a situation of stress, into a situation of survival mode. Okay, that was a mouthful. So the term intuitive eating, it might be a new term. It's to you, and it might be a new term in general. It's about 10 years old. It was invented by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Reich, who created this book on intuitive eating. They first started the method for people with eating disorders, but actually it applies to everyone, and it applies to people that don't even have an unhealthy relationship with food, but use substances or extreme forms of workout, or codependent relationships instead. So anything where you're relying on an external factor to cope with your emotions and not tuning in and being mindful with yourself is a form of not being an intuitive eater. So we're going to talk about how you can get on board with this method and what it means for you. So it's a step-by-step method to bring you back to home in your body, so that you can have a conversation with it and say, I know you're hungry, I know this would sound good. I know you're not hungry, that you're eating because you're upset because someone pissed you off. It's just about being really in touch with ourselves and really in touch with our bodies, which is a beautiful thing. And it's something that can last you the rest of your life, unlike dieting and restricting, and definitely not like emotional eating and binging. So, this is about forming honest conversations with yourself to listen to what you need, and this is probably will help you achieve a balanced weight. So maybe you feel that you're overweight in your eyes, and that intuitive eating is not going to help you, only a diet would. But actually, when you stop dieting, because when you diet, then you end up, one, like you're going into survival mode with your body, and two, you end up binging and eating more than you would had you had a healthy relationship with food in the first place. So when you stop doing all that and you just have a healthy relationship and honor your hunger, you're not going to feel the bloat, and you're also more likely to achieve a balanced weight. And it makes you stronger with your emotions, helps you deal with them and cope with them in a kind and loving way. You'll learn to accept your body and maybe even love your body. And you'll start nourishing your body properly. You'll eat the foods that you know make you feel good. Okay. Myths are that it is an excuse to eat whatever you want. It's not true. As I just explained, it's about, truly listening to your body and nourishing it, and then in summary, you're going to end up eating the foods that do that. That it's parable with dieting, I already deconstructed that myth. It is not parable with dieting. Dieting is about restrictive behaviors. Intuitive eating is not restricting yourself, but instead having a conversation with yourself. The third one is that the third myth is that it's strictly for eating disorder recovery. Also not true, because this is applied to everybody that needs some sort of support coping with their emotions. And I believe that this method is hard to do alone to begin. So we go to therapy for dealing with emotional traumas in our life. We go to yoga classes or other workout classes to de-stress. We vent to our friends when we need support. Yet we still end up binging and feeling guilty about our food choices and the way our bodies look at the end of the day. So when you work on intuitive eating with somebody, then you can tackle all of that in one, and you can become much stronger in this beautiful vessel, your body, that you have. So intuitive eating and the work that I do is where psychology meets nutrition, as I mentioned earlier. It's about your emotional, mental, and physical states and aligning with those and feeling really good and balanced with them. And it involves mindfulness and self-love. Okay, so the 10 principles of intuitive eating that we work on in the course are first to reject the diet mentality, because I said that diets do not work. Being super restrictive on yourself is not going to put you in a place where you feel, someone asked me where I was from in the Instagram group. So I live in Israel, but I'm from the US. And right now I'm explaining the 10 principles of intuitive eating. So feel free to comment with any questions you have about any of these throughout. So rejecting the diet mentality, number 1. Because diets do not put you in a place that is connected to your body. And this can be one of the hardest things for you to do. If you're constantly tracking your calories, constantly going to these apps, it can feel like the most impossible thing to put the scale to the side, to stop tracking things and to start to just listen to your body. Then we follow this with the second principle, which is to honor your hunger, which means allow yourself to eat what feels right when you are hungry. To not say, I can't have that because it's unhealthy, or it's too late in the evening, or too early in the day. And then we work on making peace with food, which means you give yourself unconditional permission to eat, especially those foods that you might consider binge foods, like chocolate or cereal or pizza. So like I said, it can feel really challenging at first, but it's worthwhile to work through these because you're uncovering a deep trauma, a deep psychological trauma that you've had for most of your life with food. For me, it's been since the age of like 10 years old. And maybe for you earlier, maybe for you it's more something that happened in your 20s, but it's definitely been going on for some time. So third is making peace with food. Fourth is challenging the food police. Now the food police are those voices in your head that say, like, you shouldn't eat that. You need to make up for that food if you're going to eat that, or like, you were really bad last night, today you must be good. Or you should never put too much oil on your food. Oil's bad for you. You can think of many examples. Then we work on discovering the satisfaction factor, which means you learn to truly understand what foods satisfy you rather than just eating to eat. Because actually foods like chocolate are super rich and super intense. So when we learn the satisfaction factor, we end up eating less of that food because it's really good, but it's really strong. And so when we eat slow and mindfully and understand how it makes us feel, then we end up eating a good and healthy amount. We follow this with feeling your fullness. So you learn to know what it's actually like to be full. When we go to the technique of when we binge eat, we are less likely to, notice when we're feeling full and just get really bloated later. So in this method, we learn to stop when we're full, and then you can eat again later when you get hungry again. The seventh one is to cope with your emotions with kindness. A big part of the intuitive eating method is, dealing with your emotions in ways that aren't always food related, that involve like what would actually make you feel good at the moment. Calling a friend, dancing, walking, some form of movement, meditation, trying the things out that you love that will really help you, journaling too. Then we work on respecting the body, so learning body love, body acceptance techniques. The 9th principle is movement, feel the difference. So you learn to move because it feels good for you, not because it's a weight loss or just because it makes you stronger or burns calories, but you move because it's something that makes your body feel really, really good. And the last thing we do, and this is on purpose that it's the last part, is to honor your health through gentle nutrition. Because if we talk about nutrition too early on, it can lead to disordered eating. So like, I believe that intermittent fasting, I believe that keto, paleo, all of these things are a form of disordered eating because we are restricting certain foods. So when you learn to honor your health through gentle nutrition, it needs to be from a place of like, I eat this way because it's nourishing for me and it makes me feel good. I don't eat this way because I should, because it's the only way to lose weight. So those are the 10 intuitive eating principles, and I cover all of them in my program over 8 weeks, and it's about 10 hours of modules that you do on your own in a self-study format. So the action steps are to create specific goals for yourself, and then to go through these different exercises, such as learning the mindful eating technique, working through emotional eating patterns, working through your controlling and restricting patterns, your inner critic and past wounds around your body and around relationships with loved ones or people that have caused that, and working on forgiveness and working on like coming back home to you, as well as gentle nutrition at the end. So it's like a little bit of a nutrition course is worked into this, but it's not the main focus of it. You're going to get a lot of everything in this. You're going to learn mindfulness and self-love. You're going to work on movement. You're going to work on your relationship with your emotions, with mindful eating, nutrition. So it's kind of everything that you need to feel like you understand your body well. And I do this through lectures, which can be listened to in podcast form or in video form. Then there's different exercises and journaling techniques, like a mindful eating exercise, an emotional eating exercise. There's meditations. And on top of that, there's a live Q&A. There's 2 Q&As total. So it's halfway through the course and at the end of it. So besides the live Q&As and an accountability buddy, everything else you do on your own. So you can do that when you have time. You can plan time throughout your week. It's not a set time that you have to do it. It's just you working on your own and keeping up with things, and then getting the support of the community and your accountability buddy on top of it. So if you feel that you don't have the time for this, you have access to the material for 3 months, and it's about 10 hours of content. So it's definitely possible to work this in if you feel like it's time for you to heal your relationship with food and your body. And I also believe that if you choose to just read a book about intuitive eating, that might help you, but a lot of us aren't really self-motivated on our own, and we could use the support of a community, especially with something like this. It's good to know that other people are also working on their relationship with food too, and to receive that extra support from me and from the other people in the community. So I put the link here on Instagram. I'm going to share it after, so you can get it there. I'm going to share it in the comments when I upload this, and then on Facebook it's actually written in the description right now. So if you have any questions, you can comment them, and I'm happy to answer them and see how I can help you. So it was really great to come here live and share my favorite method, my favorite journey and way of living life with you that I know has really helped a lot of people heal their own relationship with food and their body. So thank you all very much, and